Okay, so Claire, did you find it interesting? Like, bringing up asynchronously data on your website, like, on your web page, not only from the text file, but also from the JSON file, but also from the external API. You know what I mean? And you would have seen that we were bringing that external JPI, the Chuck Norris jokes that we were trying to bring in there. And I don't know, Clev, if you saw that or not. I asked some of the students to do a practice project as well, practice question as well, where I gave them another API of users and I asked them to just bring that data into their file. I don't know if I did that in the video or not. Do you remember something, Clev, or anyone else who had a chance to look at the part one? Yeah, okay, Pavneet, thank you very much. So, and by the way, for those who are in this class right now who have not seen the part one, Pavneet and Clev can understand that it would be rather difficult for them to, maybe comprehend most of the things. You know what I mean? So we have started this asynchronous environment, asynchronous programming in JavaScript, and you would have seen that there are a few advanced concepts that we have started. And today also we'll be going through some of the very advanced, very interesting concepts of asynchronous programming, and we'll be looking at how we will be able to just bring. Yeah, exactly. So Pavneet, you had a chance to look at it, and of course you would have seen that this asynchronous programming is so very interesting that you will be able to do a lots of wonderful things if you know that how to bring up those kind of things into that one. So I'll just open up the folder for our this week. Yeah, Claire. So that would be definitely, you will enjoy that, because promises is something so very interesting and so omnipresent these days in the programming. And even I can tell you one more important thing, and this is for especially for those who were unable to see the lecture yesterday, that it's typically the promises and of course the async await. These are kind of things that usually are asked more often in your interviews. When you go for interviews. Am I sharing the right screen? Do you see my Visual Studio Code or something else? Let me just share that. Okay. So do you see my Visual Studio Code? Okay, thank you very much. That's right. So again, for those who were unable to look at the lecture, let me tell you, you have missed a very interesting part of the lecture. Of course, today there will be few things that you might consider that they are also new and you are finding them interesting and you can work on them. But anyhow, if you have missed yesterday's lecture, of course, your understanding level, yesterday's lecture means the last lecture, which happened on Monday, and the screen is very small. Tanish, still its screen is small. It's on your side, or on your side maybe, I think. Is the screen small for everyone, or do you see a normal sized screen on my viewing area? Okay, Clef says it's a good sign. Okay, so I think it's something on your side, Tanish. You can just have a look at it. So today I'll start something very. So we have talked about asynchronous programming in general. We saw that we do some callback function sort of things to implement them. We use some APIs for that. So today I'll be using this fetch API, and after discussing the promises in general, because the promises are so very interesting, I'll enable the if I can find that, I can live transcript. So I just started the live transcript. Okay, now you must be able to see the live transcript. Is that correct? You can see what I'm talking about. You can see the written text as well. Is that correct? Yeah, I can see it myself at least. No response. Are you able to see what I'm speaking? Like again, I've opened up the live transcript. Okay, Hinal, thank you very much. So so I just want to show them again, those who were unable to see the first part. And again, please, I suppose this is a crime to come in this class without looking at the first lecture. it should be considered as crime, and there should be some punishment for that one. Anyhow, so we have talked about so many interesting things. We said that, okay, we talk about the asynchronous programming. We want to make asynchronous code that is not, maybe dependent on something else if something else is happening. So at times we need to make synchronous code, at times we need to make asynchronous code. So do that asynchronous code so that our nothing is this stopped because of that. For that typical thing, what we do is that we try to use these different techniques. And what are those techniques? There are certain APIs that we use. I have given the examples of XML HTTP request and fetch, and XML HTTP request examples I have given over there. And I'll show you what was that, because just to give them teaser introduction, those who are unable to, again, have a look at that one. So let me just take this lecture, this one out. There's this here. So you see here, I was saying that we started doing something, and we had this index.html where I had just 3 buttons. I have imported that skeleton CSS over here anyhow. So when I click on this button, I get the text file, which is the data.txt, which I can see over here. I am data file, which is .txt extension. I can bring that one. What else I can bring? I can bring a JSON user. I've talked about what is JSON. And please, again, if you have not looked at the first part of the video, I would request you go back, look at the video, because JSON is something so very important that if you do not understand JSON right now, you might not be able to understand or know what is that JSON. Anyhow, I created a user.json file. I brought that file in on this click of this button. Then I've created a users.json where I have 4 users. And when I click on bring JSON users, I get 4 users from this file. So this is again a teaser introduction for the first part. So we have done that. So we have done all these things by using XML HTTP request. So these are the 3 buttons that I'm capturing over here. A quick review. And each button is basically calling a function, bring data. First one is calling bring data. Bring data function is here. Second one is calling bring JUser, JSON user. It's here. Third one is calling bring JSON users. It is here. So it's basically calling 3 buttons calling 3 different functions. Now the first function is doing what? It's basically bring data. It's bringing up this XHR request, like, creating. I'm not discussing again because, just a quick. So this is bringing up data.txt, which I can bring from this one. If I refresh this, so this is the data.txt. And I can show you a teaser, something that if we have another .txt file, maybe the notes.txt, simple. So if I come over here and I change this data to notes, and I hit save, and I click on this one, you see that this is my notes that are coming up, all the notes. You see, this is all the notes. Of course, they are not in format. Of course, they are just the text file which is coming up. So we have done that, and we can just change that file over here for the text file, and it is just changing the text file that I bring. So I'm bringing again the data.txt file. Make sense, everyone? Again, so this is in part 1. I won't discuss it today. Then we talked about this check.html, where we have so these 3 options were just providing us the option to bring data from our own folder. So bring data, bringing the data.txt, bring JSON user, bringing the JSON user, bring JSON users, bringing this JSON users from over here, right? But this all is the resources that you have stored on your own server. But I don't want to just bring that one. I want to bring something from the API. So there are external APIs that provide us the data. So we created this check.html file. I'll open with live server this one as well. So I said that this is a Chuck Norris joke generator. When I give a number, for example, 7, it comes up with 7 jokes from an API. And what is this API? You can just have a look at it later on. So this is an API that provides, if I just do random, it provides a random joke. And if I say 7 random jokes, for example, so it comes up with 7 random jokes. You know what I mean? So I am using this API, which has so many jokes. I can bring those jokes into my website and any number of jokes that I want. If I say only 1 joke, this is the joke ID and the joke is coming. Joke is coming over here. If I say I need 2 jokes, if I do that, so it's going to the API, bringing up that data and slicing that or putting that in our HTML, inner HTML, and just showing that data over here. So you know what I mean? So this is Chuck Norris file where we did, but still we were using same XML HTTP request. And now rather than writing the name of the file, I have just used the API, the URL and then hash number. I don't know what is this hash number. I want you to just go and read that. and then we have just taken the response and we have just generated this one. So you give the number of jokes and it will just produce that number of jokes over here. So this was all previous class. I was just repeating that for a reason that maybe some of you might be were not able to see that, even though, as I said, this is all crime if you have not seen that. But even then, I'm just I've just repeated that everything for you. So what today I will start, that's a very important topic. And today, so now we are starting our new topic for today. This 10 minutes for the review of the last class. And now we are starting the new topic for today. I'll give you a detailed introduction of APIs. And what is that? Application Programming Interface. So I can write it over here. Part 2, lecture starting here. Right, so API, we'll talk about this application programming interface in detail. Application programming interface. What is an API? How does it work? And what is its literal meaning, and how do we do that? So API stands for Application Programming Interface, as we have talked about. And if you want to give it a meaning, you can say a contract provided by one piece of software to another piece of software, or to another. A contract. What does a contract mean? You are developing a website and you want to bring some data from Twitter website, twitter.com. You want to bring some data from twitter.com. You want to bring some data from facebook.com. Now, or you want to bring some data from Seneca website. I want to bring schedule from the Seneca website, for example. When you need to contact Seneca website, when you need to, someone is unmuted. I don't know. Mark, you are unmuted. Okay. So actually what we do is that when you need to talk to, for example, when you need to talk to, for example, Twitter website, you need Twitter's API for the purpose. So you will need a Twitter API to talk to Twitter API. So Twitter will provide you an API that can be used to extract tweets of a particular channel, particular person, particular user, or something like that. You understand? So API stands for that application programming. That would be sitting in between you, your website, and the Twitter website, and Twitter will be providing that API. For example, I talked about the Seneca website. Seneca says that if you want the schedule of your website, of this semester, we have just opened one API endpoint, something which is called API endpoint. I'll talk about that. So you can use that endpoint and take that data from that. Remember this endpoint. I've written that in bold because I would like to discuss about this endpoint shortly. It is also considered as structured request and response. Structured request and response. And by structure, I mean, I have discussed in our first part of this week lecture that by structure we mean we usually on web now the format that is used to send data and receive data is basically by using the JSON. It might be using XML. It might be using something else. But of course, right now the most famous method of sending and receiving data from our API, from our websites, is basically JSON, which I have discussed in the first part, and you can have a look at that one, right? And you see that I was talking about this Chuck example. Here we have talked to one API. This was an API, and by the way, as I was using, you can say that this one is an endpoint of an API. You remember endpoint I have talked about? I'll talk about that more. But we have talked to an API of Chuck jokes that he was providing us. So in general, API is called. Then there is another description, and that is called REST APIs. REST APIs. What is the REST API? I'll just first of all write the full form. It is representational state transfer. It is representational state transfer. I've intentionally made few letters capital and few small. REST. If you see that REST is capitalized over here. REST API is one of the API which is technically used for all these purposes. So APIs, REST is one of the categories of these APIs. And what is this REST API or representational state transfer? It relies on stateless client server protocol, almost always HTTP. Now, REST API is one API that relies on a stateless client server protocol. When we say stateless protocol, you know what does that mean? And I give this example generally to students and they understand. Stateless protocol is one when I keep on saying something and I never ask for a feedback that whether you have received something or not, whether you understand something or not, which I usually do not do. I always keep on looking for the feedback from you. Is that right? And if I'm looking for the feedback from you, for example, after every line, I say, Tanish, you need to say okay whenever you understand a line. So I'm a stateful type of protocol. I want to know that what's happening at your side. But a stateless on the other hand, maybe you can say that I just throw some material to you and I'm never worried about that whether you are receiving that or not, you are understanding that or not. So REST API works almost on the same way. It works on this protocol, which is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And the point is very important. Treats server objects as a resource. So it considers server objects as resource or resources, not as a resource, as resources that can be created or destroyed. Resources that can be created or destroyed. So in RESTful API, when you as a client will be interacting with a server, it will treat your server's object as resources, and you can create and you can delete the resources. Let me give you an example. And before giving example, I had this tool installed. This is a Zoom we are working on. Or Zoom has its own annotation. I can use its own annotation by the way. Now see here. You are a client sitting on your home computer, home desktop, something like that. Bear with my drawing. This is a big server with database and server computer, a big computer, like giant server computer, which has a database and everything. So what RESTful API does, for example, this is Seneca server, right? So let's consider this is Seneca server. Again, bear with my writing as well with mouse. So you say, for example, you want to know how many faculty members are there in Seneca, for example. So you will go to Seneca server and see here. Now I'll be talking technical language. You will say, I am making a GET request. I'm making a GET request, and I want to get all the faculty members' names over here. Are you getting that concept? I'm just giving you a very, very vague example, but I hope you will understand. So you will say that through REST API, what REST API will do, you will say, I am using a REST API, representational state transfer API, and I want to get the name of all faculty members. You know what I mean? You say, go and get all faculty members from Seneca server. Make sense to everyone? Can I get a yes or no in the chat window? Because this is a very important concept. I want you to understand this one. This is a logic behind that one. Okay, that's good. So you say get something. Seneca has an API endpoint. I told you endpoint. And as I said, remember this endpoint. I'll talk about this endpoint more. I'll tell you what his endpoint looks like. And you have already seen one of the endpoint, but I've not talked about that endpoint before. Okay. So Seneca says, okay, come and I will provide you all faculty member names. So it prepares a document which has all the faculty members' name, and it's sent back to you. And you see, okay, Nauman Atik is one of the faculty member over here. If you want to just confirm that whether I'm the faculty member or not. Anyhow. Is that right? So you'll say, okay, you are one over there. So you get something. So you want to get all the faculty members. Then let's talk about an environment where maybe Gautam has become Gautam wants to maybe Okay, first of all, just understand this scenario, because I would like to talk about get, and I'd like to talk about post. I would like to talk about put. I would like to talk about delete. Primarily, I'll talk about these operations that we can do. Delete is very bad because delete is not good always. So I'll talk about post, put, and delete. So you made a get request to get something from an API of Seneca server. If you say, Gautam says, I want to put another faculty member's name, a new faculty member name. So Gautam will make a request to the server, but it won't be a get request. Can anyone tell me what it will request? It will be a post request that Gautam will make now. You know what I mean? Gautam will say post, and we have a new faculty member, ABC, Mr. ABC or Miss ABC. I want to add this ABC to this list that you have, that you are maintaining for the teachers. I hope I'm making my point clear to everyone. So Gautam says that, okay, I want to post a new faculty member name. The list that came up does not have Mr. ABC on it, and I want to add that one. For example, just consider that Gautam is capable of doing that. Okay. Then Gautam says Noman Atik's phone number has changed. Now Gautam will make a put request to this server, put, and what this put will do, he will say that change the phone number of Noman because the phone number or the address has changed. So you want to make some change in some of the record, for example, change the address, for example. So you'll make a put request. So you're understanding get request, post request, and put request. And the name is very clear for the delete. Noman has resigned from Seneca. So what Gautam will do? Gautam will make a request, which will be what request? Delete Noman from your database, because now Noman is no more with Seneca, hopefully, right? So you say that delete this one from that one. Does that make sense to everyone? That delete will just go and delete that one. So these are the four. So now what is happening? What is happening? So all this faculty list which was maintained on our server, Seneca server, this is considered as a resource that you can read by using get. You can add something new by using post. You can make a change in something by using put, or you can just delete something from it by using this delete one. Does that make sense to everyone? So what is happening? It treats server objects as resource that can be created or destroyed. You have created a new faculty member, and now you have destroyed, for example, my record from that one. So you are using this REST API. So REST APIs typically do that one. And there are some other points as well, but for the timing, this should be enough for our purposes. You understand what's going on? So this is called REST APIs. Now, REST APIs have these major operations: get, and then post, and then put, and then delete. There are others as well, by the way. We are just talking about this. Retrieve data from a specified resource, right? Post, submit data to be processed to a specified resource. And put, update a specified resource. Are you getting that? I've just made very simple example and I've shown you that. Delete a specified resource, and up to so on. There are others as well. There is a head, there is option. We can talk about them, but right now just keeping ourselves to this one. Now, how does they look like? How does the resources look like? I'll just show you this. Very interesting. A get request can be made to an endpoint. I was continuously talking about endpoint. To make all these requests, every website provides some endpoints to the outer world. Those endpoints can be used to make these kind of things. So one endpoint might be, I'm talking about Seneca right now. https://seneca.ca. I'm just not using the right one, but I don't know. So Seneca might provide API/ faculty, for example. This might be an endpoint, and what you can do by using this one, get all faculty members. So you will use this endpoint, and now I will show you. This is an endpoint that Chuck Norris API has provided to us, that go to this API, you will get a random joke. Gotham, makes sense? This is an endpoint that Chuck Norris API has provided to us, that go to my this URL, you will find one random joke over there. Anyhow, so get all faculty members. Now let's talk about another get. HTTPS. Now this is very important, and try to understand this. Seneca.ca API /faculty/3. Do you know what it means? Get single faculty member who has, for example, ID 3. So still it will be getting get faculty member 3. You know, and you should see the difference. I am doing this slash number. You understand this number is coming from my HTML. I'm taking this from my text file. So what it is doing, it is just plugging in that number. You remember I was showing you that if you plug in some number to this API, so random brings up one joke. And if I say, for example, random 5, so it brings up 5 jokes. You know, so if you plug in something, it will just bring that type of information. It will just bring. So if you say a single ID, it will say, okay, I'll bring set. So every API has a different format. Right now, Chuck Norris API is doing that when you pass a number, it creates that number of one. But here, you might say that this endpoint says that if you send 3 is the name of 3 is the ID of the faculty member, and this ID faculty member will only appear, only get back to you, will be reached back to you. Now post. Now I'll just copy and paste this because I just don't want to type it again and again. Post. If you are making this post request to this one, so this is not the get all faculty members, rather you will say add faculty member. You want to add a faculty member. Is that right? You want to add a faculty member. You might send some record. Then comes put. What does put does? If you say faculty/3 or something, you mean update the faculty member. Update the faculty member who has ID 3. You know what I mean? This will be put. And then if you do delete, and believe you me, if you're not giving it concentration, this is very interesting concept. You might won't be able to learn it somewhere else, but maybe. So if I say, for example, 4, I say that delete the faculty member who has ID 4. So you will have to see that what any API is providing the endpoint of. You remember those who have seen the lecture, I've told them this is one of the API that provides this jokes. Let me show you. These are so many numbers of jokes, and I'll show you other APIs as well. So API will provide data according to its own. It's not coming over there. I'll show you this one, racras.in, and I'll show you something. So it's a fake data website that you can just use. You can get real responses with your get, put, post, and delete, and it will always on 24-hour. This API is present. And interesting part is that if you do get it, you will get all the users. If you hit this get, you will say, okay, I want all the users, or for example, from a typical page, something like that. I want to get a single user/2. You know what I mean? And if you want to just post something, you want to create a user. I want to send this user, add this to your that one. So update. There's an update as well. There is a put as well. Where is the put? Where is the put? This one is the put. So put is also update, and the patch is also there for updating. So there are lots of so every API has their own syntax of doing things. And again, if I show you, they have an API/users that will bring 6 users over here, and you can bring that in your file and you can play with them. Those who have looked at the part 1, I've given this assignment and this practice question to them. So I will be expecting that practice question from you as well. That in your website, for example, bring that. As we are bringing Chuck Norris joke, you have to bring these users into your website. Make sense, everyone? Because now we are. So this is REST API, and believe you me, this is very important concept, and this will be for life helpful for you, because you will now see that okay, this is what we were trying to do over here. Okay, So now we are creating a new file for today, right? So, I have this habit. So March 31, today is March 31, .html, first file, and it's a script as well, March 31.js. So let's do that boilerplate and everything quickly. And what we'll be doing over here, we'll talk about promises, callbacks, and async await, of course. So we want to talk about these things, right? So this is my file, and I would like to attach it with that script src, and I want to attach it to what? March 31.js, right? And let's check that one, as I have this habit of printing an alert. Hello, hello. If that alert is shown, it means my file is working and it's very much attached to it. You need to check that one. So here it's attached. I don't need anything else right now for the time being. I just close everything and I want to work on this file now. Right, so come to this file. Right, and let's write something in body. So I'll say practicing callbacks, etc. Like, I don't want to write that again and again. Okay, so is this file running? March 31. Yes, practicing. Very bad spelling anyhow, just bear with me. So practicing callbacks, etc. We'll be just practicing. And now again, I would like to do that. That looks always good if we have that skeleton CSS, because documents start looking a bit cooler. It's not always looking good with this one. So I'll just go with the title. I will over here and I'll just hit that one. So I'll get this one. So document should look like a bit presentable to someone. Okay, practicing callbacks over here. And I have got this file attached. Now, practicing callbacks, and do one more thing. Maybe just do one thing. For example, you say a paragraph here. And I want to give this paragraph let me just again tell you the shortcut. Some of you might know. If you want to create a paragraph with some typical ID, for example, I want to say output, I will, or maybe data. I will show the data over here. So p hash data. If you hit enter, you will get a p, which has an ID associated with data. And another shortcut, if you want to use, for example, you say p hash data, and you want to give it a class as well of data. For example, same data. So you do that. ID is equal to data, class is equal to data. Magic, all right? And I think you know about that one. So anyhow, so I'm just creating a P with the data ID. So I have this paragraph where I will bring my text, everything. Do that, and now come to this. Now I'm starting a very nice example where I'll show you first of all the callbacks, and then you can practice the other of the things as well. H1 is looking very bad, very big. Maybe H2. Let's do that. That's understandable. Okay, my screen was also capitalized. Okay, come back to here, and now let's create something. I want to create some posts, the Twitter posts or some posts. So I would like to create an array of the posts, and these posts will be, every post will be an a JavaScript object, normal JavaScript object, by the way, right? So I'll say title of the post, post 1. Author of the post is author 1, and body of the post is post 1 body here, right? So this is one post that I've created. I want to just copy this one for the second one, and we'll make a little changes over there. Copy this, paste this, and this is now post 2, and this is now author 2, and this is now post 2 body here. But why it's not recognizing? Maybe I have just misplaced some inverted commas, something like that. Okay, here it is missing an inverted commas over here. Okay, so these are the 2 posts that I have defined, right? This is an array of posts. I want to create a function that will create new post. So if I say create post, I want to create a function create post, right? So it will just accept a parameter with the name of post, like it will be passed a complete post to it, and it will just go and push that post onto over that one, right? So if I come over here, now I want to push that into our array, the post that has been received, but I am not posting it directly. Rather, I am posting it in set timeout. You remember set timeout, everyone? We talked about set timeout. That has one function in the beginning, right? And I'm taking this arrow function. Now I'm considering that you are old enough and you have practiced enough. And this function, after the end of this function, I want this to run after 3 seconds. 3000 means 3000 milliseconds. So I want to run it after 3 seconds. So this function will run after 3 seconds. Everyone understand this syntax? I'm expecting that you understand. So I say posts dot push and post. Now what is that? The post that has been received to you, push that, push, remember anyone? Push method was the array method that we appends the new elements to the end of an array. So I want to push this element, but I want to push this after 3 seconds. Got everyone? After 3 seconds, I want to do that. Now, another function I want to say, get posts. It does not have a parameter because I don't want it to. This does what? This reads the post. But again, this also reads by the set timeout, right? And again, I want to run it after 1 second, right? This will run after 1 second. What I want to do in over here, I want to read all the posts from this one and display them on the data part. Remember everyone? So what I do, because I have multiple, so what I'll do is that I will just create a variable output equal to nothing, first of all. And then I will do posts dot for each. Remember for each, which accepts a function and it will accept one post at a time. It will read one post at a time and it will do whatever we want with this. So I will say output equal to backticks. So I'm saying li. So for example, I will say first of all post dot title. I want to bring up the post dot title in li. And in second li, I want to bring post dot author, right? And then close this li. And you see the benefit of using backticks, that I can just write simple HTML, don't worry. And then I will say another li, for example, I want to put $, and I want to say post dot what is that, body, and close this li. That's done, and I just hit save. So now I'm understanding that you have this idea of why we do that. And after that, when it is done, I will capture the document dot query selector, and I will capture this area. What is that area? This one, data, right? So hash data query. I'm using query selector. If I was using get available ID, no need for hash. Dot inner HTML equal to output, right? So this function will run after 1 second. And this function will run after 3 seconds. Understand everyone? Now see here. I come back over here and I call this create post function. Create post, and I'm passing it a post, and post should be again in that same format that I wanted to save over there. So I'll say post 3, and I will say author is author 3, right, comma, and body, sorry, not inverted commas, body, and post 3 body here. I am calling this function with create post, post 3, and author 3, and post 3 body here. Right, everyone? I'm calling this function now. Now I'm calling this get post function. Save. I will hit save, and you see if I've done everything right. I don't know. Maybe there is mistake. But if I've done everything correct, you see on my output what will happen. Okay, there is a slight mistake. It's just showing post 2. Gautam, what I need to do to show every post? If you have done previous practices, you would know that. I have to make a little tweak to show both the posts. It's just showing 2 posts. And by the way, I'll talk about it is supposed to show 3 posts over here. but it's just right now showing post 2. Can anyone tell me what tweak I need to make in my code to show all 2 posts? That's wonderful, Pavneet. You are doing a wonderful practice over there. Plus equal to Pavneet. Thank you. So if I hit save, now I'll get both of the posts. Now the big question comes. I have called this function before, create post, post 3, but it's not showing me the post 3. And let's add one line break after that. You know, after every record, let's put a break, line break. Oh, what is that post? H4, not H4, HR. You see that line is coming. So you see that I am calling this create post first, but this post 3 is not available to me, even though it should be pushed over there. You know, I have pushed that one by using this create post, and I'm calling this create post first. Why? I hope you know the answer. Why I'm not getting the post 3 over here, even though I have pushed it before getting the posts? It's a question. And Pavneet, I would like you to answer in the end, maybe. Just wait for others to answer. I would like everyone to answer, be it IDK, I don't know. It is a valid answer, but I need everyone to answer this. Again, this is another sort of attendance for you. I need answer why I am not getting 3 posts rather than 2, because this function was called and it was supposed to put this post inside that one, push, but I don't get the 3rd post over here. I'm just getting 2 posts. It's just returning 2 posts. Pavneet, do you know the answer? You can write a yes in the chat window. Clev, you are thinking this is good. Let's just wait for the next statement. Don't type the next one. I need everyone to just jump in, because Clev, you know, I'm just trying to make attendance as well. How many are there with us? And I won't repeat that what you have to reply if you don't know the answer. So Clev, I don't need answer from you as well. I think you got the point. You got the hint that why it's not giving that. But I would like you to wait for others to just jump in. Okay, Pavneet. Okay, Pavneet, you are not sure, but okay, that's good. Pavneet, you are saying maybe because of the time that we have set. We are right. But Pavneet, I want everyone to jump in, not only you and Clev. Just wait for some other answers, right? I would be waiting for some other answers as well. No one is replying. Looks like only Pavneet and okay, Gautam, you are confused. No problem. So Gautam, you should write that. I'm not asking confused. You should write that answer which I told you in the beginning, that if you don't know the answer, you can answer this. Tanish, what does that mean? Can you explain that? Because of 3rd timeout. Okay, so 4 people have responded. Tanish has responded. Gautam has responded. I have got so many people here. Why they are not responding? And you are not responding. Archana, I got no answer from you. Chris, no answer. Disha, I have got any answer from you. Hanel, I don't get any answer from you. Jin York, I'm not getting any answer for you. What are you not sure, Archana? What was the question? Can you repeat the question? Must be whatever it is. I'm not getting an answer from you. So Pavneet, Clev, and Tanish looks like they are, and Gautam are present in the class. Rest, no one is there. Archana, what you are not sure of? Okay, so for everyone's information, for today's class, I'm just marking attendance right now, because you know this shows that who is in the class, who is not there. So I'll just randomly now mark the attendance for everyone. Those who are in class, of course, that shows how much interest you are taking. How is my pen? Archana, I'm asking you, what is not you sure about? What do you know the question? Can you repeat the question for me? Mark, why did you take so long to answer this? I don't know. Gautam just write confused. But again, why did you write that? I'm thinking about it. I don't know what's going on. That's really bad. Anyhow, now from now onward, I am sorry to say, but I won't ask any question from anyone because I'm not expecting any answer from anyone. I won't ask anything. Okay, for those who are understanding and for those who have just replied, like for example, Pavneet, you and Cleve, you, of course, you guys have been taking, really active interest. So you see here, actually this function, which I call over here. So Pavneet, see here that it runs after 3 seconds, it takes 3 seconds to execute. And when I call this function, it does that. It inserts that post, but inserts after 3 seconds. On the other hand, the get post run within 1 second, after 1 second. So, I'm calling get post right after this. This function is taking 3 seconds to execute. So it will take 3 seconds and after that it will be executed. And this will be executed within a second, in 1 second. Right. So what we need to do, for example, yes, you're right. Maybe I say get post, not 3 seconds, not 1 second. It should run after 4 seconds. For example, I say after 4 seconds. See the output, Pavneet. You're right one way or other. Now it will run after 4 seconds and we have got all 3 posts available to us. You got it, everyone? That now we have got this post 3 available. Why? Because now this function is running after 4 seconds. Okay, Disha, your yes sir is not making any sense to me because you never replied to my answer. I don't know if you are understanding right now. Okay, yes. So what we can do is that to solve this problem. One of the solution of this one is that make this get post function, just keep it to 1 second, no problems. And of course, if it is to 1 second, I will only get 2 of them because I'm not getting the third one. Rather than doing that, what we do is that we make the get post as a callback function and we pass that as a parameter to create post. Now, whenever a function is being passed as a parameter to another function, it is called as the callback function. And now where I can call this callback function, whenever the post is pushed, call this callback function CB callback. I just called it callback. You can name it anything because it's the generic form. It's accepting the parameters. Cleve, you're getting that? Yes, you're right. Make it a callback. And now what happens? I won't be calling it out like this. I'll just make it comment again. I'll make it comment. And now rather than calling this over here, what I'll do is that I'll go to create post and I'll say over here get posts. And I don't need even to give that the parameters, right? I don't need even give the parameters. Get posts. Now you see here, you see that it is giving me 3. So when something Geniac, you said what if it goes 2000 the second time? No problems. Whatever time it will take, Geniac, now it will always get post will always be called after the create post is done. So you'll see that when we call this create post is basically doing its work. It's taking 3 seconds, but this CB, the callback function, will never be called unless that is done doing that. Now you change the time or do whatever, it will just be now working fine. If you change its time, and of course that makes real sense. If I do 1 second, of course that makes it quickly. But again, now my second function is taking 4 seconds, so they will combinedly take maybe 4 seconds. And then when they appear, they have all the 4 posts available over there. This is the concept of a callback function. If you pass a callback function to a function, it runs after when the first function is done. It never runs before that one. You know what I mean? So this is the example of the callback function. I wanted to give this first example of this callback function. And let me just, so this is the first one. Will the callback accept parameters? Yeah, it can accept the parameters. If you want to pass some parameters, for example, you want to pass, I don't know if you want to pass this posts or posts form over here. It will accept that. But again, that should be defined in that one as well. The parameter should be defined over here. Cleve, you understand? Yes, if it is accepting something, you can pass it over here. It will accept this in X or C or whatever, and you can work it with that one. So that's up to you if you want to pass that parameters over there. Right? Okay, it's taking too long because I've done this 4 seconds. Now I will do this 1 second. So it really does not matter now because I've done 1 second. So it will, after 1 second, it will just display everything because we have done this callback. And now what I'll do is that, again, for the time being, I won't call it, so that I don't want to see this one, and I want to work on some different things. So this is the first example for today, callback functions. Now I would like to start something which is called promises, which is very, very interesting, which is very, very important. And callbacks are also important, but now promises in JavaScript, which is a new thing which has been introduced in ES5, ES6, ES6 and ES5, ES6, I think, and ES6. So, but they are so powerful. They are another form of, you can call it that they are another form of if and else, but it's not the case really. Of course, we'll look at that one, but it is that ES5 and ES6 thing that we do promises. And now what we'll do, one of the promise that I'll make is, let's take a break. Right, so I'll be back in 8 minutes, right? So let's take a break and be back in 10 minutes. You also go and refresh yourself. Yeah, so we'll talk about promises now. So promises is just like the real world promises, by the way. In our real world, we make promise with someone, and either we fulfill it or we don't. So in the same way, JavaScript has this promises component that has 2 states. It has a state resolve and it has a state reject. So again, if you compare it with our real life promise, resolve means fulfill the promise, and reject means did not fulfill, fulfill the promise. So if someone fulfills the promise in terms of JavaScript language, you will say the promise was resolved. And if someone does not fulfill the promise, in JavaScript language, you will say that promise was not fulfilled. It was rejected. You know what I mean? It would be called as rejected. So I will go back to this one. And by the way, right now it's not showing anything. Rather, I will just do a few things for the console right now and show you console, because it runs in the console for us. So to create a promise, we use this syntax. So I can say let p is equal to new promise. Right? I'm creating a new promise over here. Now the syntax of promise. Promise accepts a callback function that has these 2 values, resolve, reject. So this is a callback function. So I'll create a complete function over here. And please try to remember this syntax. This is very interesting one. Right? So I'll say, okay, for example, let age equal to 20. I'll just define a variable, let age is equal to 20. If age is greater than 18, right? I'm just trying to make up some. If that is happening, you say resolve. You call resolve method, which is one of the parameter, with some message. You are welcome. Right? Or I can say this is a success message because promise has been fulfilled. So, in our general language, let's talk about this. I am making a promise that gives you are welcome message to adults, again above 18 or equal to 18, whatever. We can just make that adjustment. And so it is resolved if the age is greater than 18 for someone. Else what happens is that it says reject and a message. You are underage, for example. I'm just, as I said. So it is basically, you can say failed, the message of failed. So I've created a promise. First of all, look at the syntax of the promise. And I promise you will forget the syntax. Just think about it. Promise accepts a function. I have just defined a callback function inside that, resolve, reject. And then inside that, I just define let age is equal to 20. I'm just defining by myself. You know, it might be coming from somewhere, it might be a file, it might be something, etc., etc., etc. Anyhow, I say that if age is greater than 18, so this processing can be done from anyone. So if age is greater than 18, so I will later on check if age is greater than 18. I will say resolve. Okay, you have the promise fulfilled. The user is greater than 18. The promise is fulfilled. Number one. Else, if the user is not greater than 18, the promise will say I am reject. Like promise will be rejected. Makes sense to everyone? Now, how to call this promise? This is a new promise that I've created. How to is the success resolution of the promise. And then also accepts a function, a callback function. Okay, it says that my internet connection is unstable. Are you still hearing me okay? Because I have got the message your internet connection is unstable. Pavneet, I'm okay. It means you say no means I'm okay, right? Okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you very much. So first of all, this then also accepts then it has a function that receives a message, and after receiving this message, of course, this is the function. So it may I'm just consoling this right now. You remember? Okay, right. So it should be okay now. So if I say console.log, I am then part, and the message that has been received from the back. The message is, and I can just go plus, and I can say message. You know what I mean? If successful, and I'm consoling this, so let's go back over there and check whether it is done. I will then part and message you are welcome success. So your message is you are welcome success. So I'm receiving that one. Now, if I show you, because I have not handled that one, if I make it less than 18, I won't get any output. So you see, uncaught in promise. You are underage field. So this is an error that is. So you see, the message is generated. You are underage field. But since I did not catch it, so to catch it, after then, look at the syntax. After then bracket, I will come over here and I'll say catch. Please try to understand the concept. And now here also it will have a callback function. It will receive a message, and I can call it over here, not the message. I can call it error. Whatever is the error, because it's rejected over here. But you can call it anything. So I come over here and say console.log. This is catch part, and the message is again, I just received that in error. So I'll do that error, ERR. Okay, Pavneet, I'll explain that again. Pavneet, I'll explain that. Thank you. I will explain that. Control S. I save this one and I show you. Now you see that this is catch. Now I'm getting a legal message. It's not an error generated by that one. Pavneet, are you understanding this? I'll come to the p.then as well, but you understand? This is coming to a catch. Now, if I just make it above 18, again, greater than 18, if I do that, what message I'll get? Anyone? And then part, the message is you are welcome. So Pavneet, what is this p.then? So Pavneet, name of the promise is P. So I say P. Dot then also receives a function inside as a callback function. So that callback function will receive one parameter, because whether it is resolved or rejected, it will return a message inside that one. You understand what I'm saying, Pavneet? So it is sending a message. So I catch that message, and I have a callback function over here that does what? That catches that message and runs some code over here and displays that message over here. And I can see that when the message, again, if I just refresh it, clear it, if I refresh it, because age is greater than 18, so I'm getting resolved. So then catches the resolved part, and catches the reject part. Pavneet, did you get it? Because you are asking a question. You understand it? Okay, that's wonderful. Because this is very important to understand. If you understand this one, because the fetch API that we're about to start, it all depends upon the promises. I will stop here. Everyone is understanding what's going on in the promises. So a promise is something that literally either resolved or rejected. And by the way, I'm doing this in console. I have got that area of data of area. I'll just put that as a comment because some of you might be able to want. And that I have got document dot query selector. I've got the data part. Why not just go and put that on data? Hash data dot inner HTML. I'll just provide it an HTML backward slash. I will say H3 promise result, right? I'm just saying promise result H3, and rather I should write promise successful, right? And I can write the message as well. And how can I write message? Remember, I will just do that and I'll get message. Remember how to write in backticks. So message is over here. Now let me just make word wrap. You see, I am just H3 is looking good, like looking very big. Oh no, H4. Right, everyone? And I can do the same thing over here at the bottom. So now if you get a reject, you will get this second message, which is not coming. Why? Oh, why it's not coming? Can anyone tell me why it's not coming? There is something wrong in my code. Exactly. So that it should not be message, it should be error, number one. And secondly, promise not successful. Promise is unsuccessful now. You know what I mean? Because I am right now in the catch part. So catch part means that my promise becomes unsuccessful. Let's run that. If I was able to make you understand promises a little bit, this is a great success, because promises are always a typical syntax, like typical thing that students usually they get confused in that much. So was I successful in and making you understand a bit more than that one, like a bit most of the part of it? No response. That's wonderful. Rather, we should never ask a question, by the way. Yeah, it's a bit like that's what I'm saying, that it will also resolve and reject as per. Yeah, exactly. It will only accept these two. Yes, resolve and reject. And by the way, you will shortly know its practical usage as well, which when I'll use that another document for fetch API, you will definitely enjoy that. But again, I want you to understand the concept over here. So I am just right now maybe making it comment, and I'll show you another example just to make your practice for that one. Now see here, let P is equal to new promise, and a promise has this default behavior that is accepts a function which has two parameters, resolve and reject. And this function does what? This function runs for anything. For example, let A is equal to 3 plus 5, something like that. I'll give you a very practical example of that. By 3 plus 5, if A equals 8, resolve good with the message good, right? Else reject bad. I've created a new promise which calculates A, that A might be coming from a file or something else. Do that, and after that is the resolve or reject. Now, if I want to call this promise, I'll say P dot then will accept a function inside that one, callback function, that will receive a parameter of message, because the message will be passed from there. And if this is a callback function, I can just create like this. And I'm saying, for example, again, I'm going to document.query selector. I want to display over there. Hash data dot inner HTML equal to backticks H5 success, right? So I'm saying that if that's successful, and you see that, of course, this will work, success. And I'm saying that I need to catch that as well. Or for example, if I say A turned out to be this one, so I'm not catching that, and I will be getting that error in the console. So I need to catch that one. So if you want to catch, then after this, then you come over, not then, sorry. After this, come over here and use catch. And the catch also has a callback function that I'm calling over here, and I'll just copy and paste this. I'm not pasting the message, by the way, don't worry. It's not always important to do that. So if I say failed, you see I get the failed message, and I get the success message. And by the way, since I was not displaying the message over here, you can very easily put that message. And this is the help of backticks. You say message, right? You can say, for example, over here, because this is backticks, and backticks are so powerful. You can say error. So if you do that, something wrong with it, you will see that it's failed, bad. And why it's coming in a new line? Because this was H5, H5 is a block level element. Understand, everyone? Now, if you understand that, I will, as I said, I will give you a very important, interesting, practical usage of that one. And that would give you a more sense of it. Now, so I'm done with this March 31 document, and you can always uncomment that and check that one when you are working on that one. Now I'll create another file, but what I want to do now I want to discuss Fetch API. Fetch API, which is very interesting, and I'll show you that what is Fetch API and how does it work, and you will definitely you're gonna enjoy that. So first of all, I'm showing it over there, but then I'll create a document for that one. Rather let's create a document, new document. So I'm creating new documents, and I will be calling them fetch.html, and of course the same fetch.js. So I have those two files. Again, fetch.html, just create a quick boilerplate, and I want to work on Fetch API, right? And connect it with your script. What is the script? Script src, and the script is fetch.js, right? So again, that old method of myself to check. It's always good to make sure, because you don't know that's what's going on. So if I run this fetch.html, so you see that it's connected, right? I don't need you. Rather, I need something else, which I'll show you. So it's a script file. I have attached it to this one, and if when I run HTML, the script will run. So I can check something. If I say console.log, and I console something very interesting. What I want to console here, for example, if I say fetch, right, and I say, for example, data.txt. I want to bring data.txt into my page. So I'm consoling that what it will return. That's a very important part. What fetch returns. Now, if I want to see that fetch return, what fetch returns, I'll have to go to the console, because I'm doing that in console. Okay. What is written here? What I'm getting back from the fetch. Anyone? What is that I'm getting back from the fetch? So whenever fetch is called, yes, it returns a promise. And if I open this promise, you see it's a promise. It says fulfilled. It means that data has been received, but I cannot see the data right now. I'll talk about how to see the data. And what is the response that I've got? I've got something like this. There is a body. This is a readable stream. This is not the text. The text should appear over here, but it's saying readable stream. I'll talk about how to. But you see the status is 200. Status test is okay. So it means that I have received the promise. It is the fulfilled promise, but I do not see anything. Okay, I do not see anything. I do not see the data over here. And I'll talk about how we'll see that data. But do you understand that a fetch API always returns a promise. Clev, that is the point that you need to remember. And for the time being, I just want to delete that one. So go to your HTML part and let's do some HTML over here. Let's create some HTML over here. So maybe if you say, for example, let's create a container class. You know, I've told you that it's always good practice to create a container class where you just put everything inside that one. So H1 fetch for different options. I'm using fetch for different options, and again do that same thing of using this skeleton CSS so that we don't need to look at the bad HTML, right? We are always looking at them some cool HTML, right? So fetch different options. So fetch for different options, and then after that, what you can do is that let's create 3 buttons, and with an ID of button 1 or button 1, button 2, button 3, right? Or rather BTN 1. Oh, sorry. So BTN 1 and multiply by 3. I need 3 buttons here. BTN 1, BTN 2, BTN 3. Okay. So for BTN 1, I'll say get text, right? So BTN 1 will be get text. So one button is get text. And let's talk about the second button. It should be ID should be equal to BTN 2. And I want to say get J user, a single JSON user. Remember, get JSON user. I'll talk about that one. Now this 3 should have an ID 3, BTN ID 3, and get J users. The same thing that we did for our XML HTTP. We are doing almost the same thing. We'll first try to bring the text file, and then we'll try to bring something. Get text, get J user, get J users. You know what I mean? Now let's come back to our fetch file, and first of all capture the button. Document dot query selector and hash. What is that? BTN1. I'm talking about the first button. Add event listener. I want to add event listener. Click, and I want to call function. For example, I will say load data. Right. So this is the function that I want to run over here. So I want to run this load data. So let's run this. Let's create this one, load data. And just console something to check whether it is working fine or not. Console log load data working. Right. So let's check that. Inspect in console. If you go here, console, open console, and now click on this one. Load data is working. So my function is working very much, right? Now I have to do something very interesting. So I'll use fetch. And what I want to fetch data.txt. Remember, I want to fetch get data.txt. You'll find it syntax. Sometimes we can use the get as well before that, but right now just use this get, because when we'll be using this URL part, we'll just do that. Now, you know that if I just leave something like this, you know that when I click on this, it's showing nothing because I'm not even consoling that. So if I console that, I can show you. Console.log. What will be consoled? Can anyone tell me? What will be consoled for my promise? Yes, that's wonderful. If I click on this button, I'll see a promise which is pending, which shows pending. Let's talk about this. So it's returning a promise, console.log promise. Now I know that fetch always returns promise. Now be very careful. I'm about to tell you some very interesting thing. If it does that, it means I will have to use a then over here. Pavneet, are you getting why I'm using .then over here with fetch? Because fetch is returning a promise. And we know that when promise returns a successful data, we use then to catch that one. Clef, Pavneet, you remember that? I want you to understand everything. It's returning a promise, but how to read that promise out of it? For reading that promise out, what I'll have to do, you know that I will have a function over here and it will have a response, response data that will be coming. So let's talk about that. The response data will be coming. Now let's do something. Console.log response that is coming. You know the response is coming from that one. Response. And now this response, let's first of all just call this response, whether it is giving some response or not. Save that. Refresh that. And I want to clear that. Now I'm clicking the first button. Clev and Pavneet, look at what is happening. I'm getting a response. but still that response is not something that I can show someone. It's a response that has different features. So I'll talk about first of, I've just told you that this is one of the things that it is basically just providing us that REST, and REST is a response that is coming. Now, I want to take the text because this is a normal text. So I'll have to go to the prototype. Here I'll find a method text, which will return me the text which is coming from that response. You know what I mean? Now, if I go over here and if I do response.text, and this is a function by the way. If I do that, hit save, clean this one, click on first button. See my console. It's still response promise. Understand, good. But this promise looks like that it has some promise result data into it. You know what I mean? It has some data into it. Return. So remember that whenever we will do this response.text, so please don't confuse, and you will start getting confused. This fetch is returning a promise that I am catching with by then, and it is providing a response. And I see that this is a response, but this is still a promise. So whenever we get this promise again here, rather than consoling it, I'll say return this response.text. I'm returning yet another promise from this one. Now, to catch this promise, what I'll do? Now everyone will be surprised. What is going on? Another function that will receive typically the original data. I'll just first do that and I'll ask how many of you understand. Now if I console.log data, not data queue. Now clean that up and now see when I click on my first button. How many of you are clean bold after this one? Because this start to become a bit complex. But remember, this response.text again provides another promise, and to catch that promise, I need to chain this dot then with this response. And how about this? If I do data1.txt, for example, which is not a file, can anyone tell me what will happen? See if I clean that. You see, it says get this data1.txt not found. It's a typically error. So a question, have I used dot catch over here? Exactly, Clev, you're right. So Clev, now you are right. This is right observation. Now Clev, tell me, have I used catch over here anywhere? No, there is no catch over here. Now if I come over here and after this then, I say catch. And you remember catch also accepts a parameter, ARR, and has a callback function. And if I say console.log, something bad happened. I don't know what has happened, but I'll have that message as well. So let's put that message, ERR. You know what I mean? Now see here. I'll just click that, refresh that. And now if I click on the first button, refresh that. And now if I click the first button. Okay. Why it is not giving me this message? It's not considering it as error right now. It says the get data1.txt not found, which is not my message, my error. It's just seeing this error, and it says cannot get data. Why is not showing that message? Okay, I'll see that shortly. But before that, I'll have to just check that why it's not showing the error. But you understand that again, it's just generating its own error right now, which is not good. I always want to control that error. So right now it is saying that data1.txt not found, which I will have to catch by using the using the catch, which I'm not doing right now. Just bear with me. And right now I'm just showing you that okay, if the data is successfully coming, it is just showing me the data over here. So as Clev said, yes, the first response from this response.text, the first promise, the promise that is returned from this fetch is another promise. When response.text is done, that will return the original data, and I can catch that in then again, and I can work with that typical data over there. Can we also fetch the endpoint of exactly? Clev, that is what you have to do, by the way. That is what you have to do. But there is something else that you need to do. I'll just show you that Chuck Norris random URL. You see that here the data that is received is not text data. So just bear with me. I'll give you Clev hint towards the end. You will be able to do that. You know what I mean? I'll give you, yes, you can do that. And that's what you have to do. Right now, we are just bringing this data from the data.txt and we are not doing anything else. You know what I mean? So that's something that is basically, and now I'm just, checking that. I'm just checking that catch because catch should work over here. I don't know why it's not working for the not found file. I'll have to just check that later on. But you try to, I'll just try to make you understand what's going on. So it's just error. I just console this error. Maybe why not? It's just showing. And if I click that, of course, my data file, because this is data file is existing. If I say data1.txt and I click on this one, okay, no, it's not giving the right output. You know what it's supposed to do? It should, since data1.txt is not found, so this will have returned, an unfulfilled promise. So this should have written an unfulfilled promise, and this should come over here. You know what I mean? And this should show that, okay, the file is not found or something, that file is not existing. But it's just not giving that message. Rather, it is giving me that, okay, the load data function is not working and it's not finding of the file. I'll just, check that one. But for the time being, just understand if it is correct files, it is just bringing up the data and it's just showing that data over here. And now I don't want to show this data over here. Rather, I want to show this data. So I have in this fetch.html, I don't have defined anything over here. So I'll come over here and I'll just define a P over here with an ID data, right? So I'll catch that one. So I'll just go there, and rather than doing this one, this is simple text. So I'll do document dot query selector and hash data dot inner HTML, or here it can be inner text as well, but I would like to embed some HTML to it. Backticks H6 or H5. H6 will be very small. H5, and what should I write? $data H5. Right, so I've just done that. So now I don't need to see this console. If I get that, I'm getting this data over here. Now it is coming through fetch by using the promises and everything. Is everyone with me? Everyone is getting that? That's wonderful. Now let's do one more thing to bring this JSON data. So JSON user. Now I'll create a JSON file. So I have already, let's try to, let's see that if we can work with this same file, or we can create a new file for that one as well, by the way. Let's do this with the, so here I will just, okay. So I will here not doing these things. I will get the JSON users here, and I will get the data from API. Directly we'll do that as the Clev asked the question. So I will bring the JSON users over here and bring the data from get API over here. So right now I would like to just work on the second button. And what is the second button? Second button is btn2. Let's come back over here and first of all catch that button. And how to catch that button? So I can catch it by using btn2. And I can say not load data, rather I'll say load J data, JSON data, right? Load J data. And I want to create this function, so I'll copy this so that I do not mistake. Function, paste. I want to create this function. And now again, check this one, if it is working. Function working, blah, blah, blah. And let's see if it is working. Console, if I hit on the second button. So function is working. Very bad spelling, but function is working. I don't need you anymore. Right? So now let's do what we'll be doing over here. So what I'll do, I'm getting the get JSON data, JSON users or something like that. So I'll do what over here, fetch, and now what is the file of name? Users.json. I want to fetch this one. Now, if I fetch it, it will return a promise, right? And promise will receive a response, and that response. So now listen here. Now this was a normal text file, so I was receiving receipts.txt. But here, if I show you, there is another method. Console. If I just show you response right now, so fetch and see the response. If I click on this one, so if I go to console and click, so you see that it's basically returning a response. And this response in this prototype, there is another function, not text. Rather, I will be looking for function JSON, because now it is returning a JSON text file. You know, everyone. So now I will be saying not res dot. So I will not return from here res dot text. Rather, I will say return res dot. What should I do? JSON. It will return a JSON data. And now I'll catch this data. And of course, there should be a function for catching the data. So now this data should be visible to us. And let's console.data. Res.json will return our that data, right? So now let's click on the second button. You see that I am getting the data. All 4 users that we have in my users.json. You get my point? It's still now, right now it's just working in that one. Yeah. So Clef, you enjoyed that one? So you see that it is bringing up that all 4 files into the fetch. And again, all those asynchronously and all those in the background, nothing coming out there. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now let's quickly just paste that into our data file, because that is our real purpose. I don't want to just console this data over here. Rather, I want to just put that over here. But let's first of all put that one. I cannot do just directly put that over here. Rather, what I need to do is that this data will be, so this should be the same, and I'll just change that one shortly. But this data is coming as there are multiple files, and we need to do what? For each. I need to just extract through that one. So there will be a function that will take one item at a time, right? And it will do what? It will just maybe let's create a variable. Again, you remember when we have multiple outputs, you can just create a variable output equal to nothing. And now over here, do what? You come over here and you say data.forEach and output is equal to output plus equal to, remember, output plus equal to backticks, and let's create an li dollar, and what I got? Item dot. So for example, what are different users that we have? Item dot id and item dot name. So I can set item dot name, for example, just for item dot name. Item dot name, and I create this li. Right. So that's li, and I will just do this one. That tick is already closed. And now in this one, what I'll do is that I'll just put that output. Right. So now clean this one, and rather close this one because I'm not consoling anything. If I click on that, okay, I've done something wrong. This curly braces. So you see that this is the power, and this is the bad thing about backtick, that you see that all those 4 names are coming. Clef, do you see that? All 4 names. So I can just bring item dot name. I can say item dot id, for example, and let's just give a space, and in the same way I can just write everything. So I say item dot, what is that? The other thing that I've defined? H. Item dot H. Right. So let's see that. And now if you hit that one, you say 1 Alan Smith 20, 2 Bob Smith 24, 3 Christina Smith 24, Doug Smith 23. Does that make sense to everyone? This is so very interesting. This is all so interesting. I'm just bringing directly the users.json over here. So this users.json is bringing all the users over. And if I keep on increasing the users over there, of course, that definitely they are going to work. If I just copy this, so bring 2 of them. So hit save, and you see that I have copied this 3 multiple times, so 3 will come. This will come 3. But again, still we are working on our same file. And the last thing, how to bring data from the API. For that, let's wait for our next class, and I will just give some task in that class as well. So that would be next week. So I hope you enjoyed today's topic, this fetch API, and there is remaining async await, and we will talk about this async await in the coming week. Async await is another very interesting thing that we'll do next week, and we'll do some practice questions also in the next week. Okay. So having said that, this is all that we want. So I'll talk about this GET API in the next class, in the coming next week, and then we'll talk about async await as well. So then we can just work on this one. Right. All good? Okay, thank you very much. And so if you have no questions, then please, you have some question? You are just raising hand.
Yes, sir. I sent you an email about 2 days ago to explain my assignment too. So could you please check your mailbox?
Okay, I will check that, and you stay with me, and or rather, don't stay here. You just join that NVB session. I'll just start, NVB session shortly for some time for attendance purpose only. Can you join that NVB session?
Just after this class?
Yes, after this class. I'll just stop this, and then you can just join that, right?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Okay, so stop here and stop recording.